All right, welcome back. Today, we're jumping right into a pretty wild theory that's been making the rounds in the crypto space. It suggests that two of the biggest names you know, Ripple and Stellar, are actually working together on something, well, something way bigger than most people think. So let's just get into it, because the claim at the heart of all this is, it's a big one. So boom. Right out of the gate, this is the core idea from the source material we're looking at. The claim is that Ripple and Stellar, who, let's be honest, most of us see as rivals, have actually been building a single global financial system together. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But stick with me, because the theory lays out a really interesting trail of breadcrumbs to follow. So, a plan this huge, where do you even start? Well, the source we're looking at says it all starts with an absolutely massive ambition. The idea here is that for years, both Ripple and Stellar have been dropping these little hints, clues that they're not just building another payment system. Nope, they're supposedly creating an entirely new asset class from the ground up. Yeah, you heard that right, a trillion-dollar asset class. We're talking about a whole new foundation for how we handle, well, everything. Money, identity, you name it. But, to even think about pulling something like this off, you'd need some serious next-level tech. You'd need a key component that, until pretty recently, was basically the missing piece of the whole puzzle. And that brings us to the absolute heart of this whole theory. It's a technology called ZK, which stands for Zero Knowledge Proofs. Now, this isn't just some small update or a little tweak. The source material basically says this is the key, the cryptographic master key that unlocks this entire system and allows for a level of privacy and security that, well, that we've just never had before. So, okay, what exactly are zero-knowledge proofs? The crazy thing is, the concept is actually pretty simple, but what it can do is incredibly powerful. Think about it like this. Imagine you need to prove you're over 21 to get into a bar. With ZK, you could prove it without ever showing your ID or your actual birthday. Or what if you could prove to a seller you have enough money in your account for a purchase without them ever seeing your balance? That's ZK. It's the ultimate combo of privacy and proof, all wrapped up in one tamper-proof package. And look, this isn't just some obscure tech that a few geeks are excited about in a lab somewhere. Not at all. The source makes a huge point of this. The biggest players in both traditional finance and crypto are apparently going all in on ZK tech. I mean, when you see names like BlackRock, JP Morgan, right next to Ripple and Stellar, that's not just a coincidence. That screams that there is a major institutional push happening behind the scenes to make this the new standard. Okay, so let's use an analogy. If ZK technology is the powerful new engine, then who's actually building the car around it? Well, that brings us right back to our main characters, Ripple and Stellar. And according to this theory, you shouldn't think of them as competitors trying to build two different cars. Instead, think of them as two different teams working on the same car, just building different parts of it. This slide really gets to the heart of the whole argument. What the source is claiming is that, while everyone is watching Stellar make these big public moves, like upgrading to Protocol 24 to add ZK tech and smart contracts, the XRP ledger has been quietly putting the foundations in place for a while now. We're talking about things like support for decentralized IDs, which is basically like a digital passport that you own and control, not some company or government. It also already has things like credential wallets and tools for whitelisting domains. So the picture being painted here is of two separate paths, yeah? But they're both heading straight for the exact same destination, a completely new kind of financial network that's secure, private, and built around your identity. And to really hammer this point home, the source brings up this quote from Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse. He basically says the government owns your identity and would love to have a blockchain version of it. And that's the key takeaway, right? This isn't just about moving money around faster. It's about who controls your identity. The argument is that the real endgame here is a system where your identity is on the blockchain, something you control, but also something governments are, let's say, very interested in. Okay, so this is where things start to get, well, a little more conspiratorial. We're about to go a bit deeper down the rabbit hole, because the theory doesn't stop with Ripple and Stellar. It brings in another player, a massive one. We're talking about the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock. The claim is that BlackRock isn't just watching from the sidelines. They have a hidden hand guiding this whole thing. And the so-called proof, the smoking gun, it all comes down to one kind of cryptic connection. It's a shared stock ticker symbol. And the source presents this as the piece of evidence that ties BlackRock directly to a project that's being built on the XRP ledger. So check this out. This is the big connection the source is pointing to. On one side, you've got BlackRock. They have an ETF, a genomics one, and its ticker symbol is XDNA. Then, on the other side, you have this new project launching on the XRP ledger called DNA Protocol. And guess what its token ticker is? Yep, XDNA. The theory presents this shared ticker as, well, as the smoking gun, the undeniable link. So what do you think? Is that just a crazy coincidence? Or, as the theory suggests, is this a deliberate signal, a little breadcrumb left out in the open for anyone paying close enough attention to connect the dots, a link between the biggest player on Wall Street and what's happening on Ripple's ledger? Okay, I know what you're thinking. What about the giant SEC lawsuit against Ripple, right? That's the huge elephant in the room for any theory like this. Well, the source we're looking at has a pretty wild explanation for that too. It basically calls the entire lawsuit theater. Just a big performance designed for one purpose, to create a distraction and, more importantly, to buy time.
So, according to this theater theory, the timeline looks something like this. You start with the fact that the head of the SEC, Gary Gensler, used to literally teach classes on this stuff, digital identity, at MIT. So he knows the space. Then, boom, the SEC sues Ripple in 2020. This kicks off a years-long legal battle that slows everything down, publicly at least. And what was happening during that delay? Well, the theory goes that all the big institutions were quietly getting into position, setting themselves up. So the whole lawsuit wasn't a roadblock at all. It was a smokescreen, a necessary delay to let the big money get ready before flipping the switch.
All right, so let's tie all these threads together. If we follow this theory all the way to the end, what's the actual endgame here? What would this new financial world, supposedly built by Ripple and Stellar, with big players like BlackRock in the background, what would it actually mean for you and me? Well, the vision that's laid out is pretty utopian, to be honest. It's a future where your identity is actually yours. It lives in your own private wallet, not on some government server. Imagine a world where you can trade, invest, send money instantly, with no banks, no brokers, no paperwork slowing you down. And then there's the most radical claim of all, that this system could mean the end of things like forced taxes and constant financial surveillance. It's a huge promise. And in the end, it all circles back to one central claim. The theory's bottom line is that this whole new world, this revolutionary system, from your personal digital identity to the deep pockets of institutional finance, is being built quietly, piece by piece, right now. And it's being built on the XRP ledger. So that's the theory, and it leaves us with a pretty massive question, doesn't it? Is this all just a classic case of connecting dots that aren't really there? A big, elaborate conspiracy theory? Or is there something to it? Are we looking at the actual blueprint for a brand new financial system, one that's being built in plain sight while everyone's looking the other way? Ultimately, that's for you to chew on. Thanks for diving into this with us today.